Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris McReynolds, Vice President of Cloud and Data Services with Level 3 Communications. And for those of you not familiar with who Level 3 Communications is, we are a global provider of voice and video, data center, and cloud services with our primary operations in Latin America, North America, Europe, and Asia. So I'm here to talk about big data, cloud, and convergence today, and I'm going to run through a bit of different perspectives I've heard on big data and some examples in the industry of verticals that are driving big data examples and use cases, a bit about how the consumer world is driving a lot of big data, and then I've seen a lot of Internet of Things. I'll talk a bit through some of the interesting examples I've seen with the Internet of Things, and then I'll move into what are the opportunities I see in the industry for all of this, what are the challenges, and what are some ways to address those challenges. So big data. I think what big data is, it really depends on your role in a company as to what your perspective is of big data. So I'm in marketing, and I find big data very exciting. Some of the words, and the bigger the word, the more it is associated with big data. Some of the words for marketing, I think of, are opportunity to learn, learning, research, insights, disruptive. It gives the opportunity to get a lot of customer insights and get ahead of your competitors in the marketplace if you can make effective use of big data. Now, if I'm in operations, I've probably got a slightly different perspective. Different words come to mind. It's science, it's process, it's efficiencies. All of these things, if I really understand how my business is running in the operations, I can make my business more efficient and more profitable. So if I'm in operations, I find big data very exciting as well. Now, there is another group, IT operations and infrastructure. And I don't think it is quite as exciting for that group. It's overwhelming, it's daunting when you see the words up there of petabytes, and you see storage, and you see security. These are all things that as an IT infrastructure and IT operations group, you need to be very concerned with. It's a lot of data to manage. You don't know how much data it's going to be because these are emerging trends. How do you scale up to support it quickly? And how do you make sure you manage it all in a very secure fashion? So I'm going to run through some examples, and they won't be applicable to everyone, but I hope these examples give you some ideas to think through in your specific industry. How does big data impact you? How might you be able to leverage big data? So financial services. The goal of financial services is to make money for their customers. And an interesting example in financial services is think about all the stock exchanges around the world and think about all of the different information that's traded. It's stocks, it's commodities, it's the wealth of information of different traders putting offers to buy, to sell. It's so much information, but the really effective financial service firms are taking all of that information around the world and they get insights. They're able to correlate oil prices dropping on the Asia market. Maybe that means that the automotive stocks in North America go up. Maybe it means that the oil and gas companies like Chevron and Exxon are going to go down. So there's different time zones, there's different information. The really intelligent financial service firms are finding a way to collect, aggregate, store, and analyze all of that data to make faster decisions and better decisions on their investments for their customers. Healthcare is another interesting trend. You know, traditionally it had been a lot of papers. You'd go, if I rolled my ankle playing football or soccer, I would go to the doctor and I would have an MRI, and it would be this big image that was just a sheet, and I had a folder and I'd take it home. And if I went to another doctor, I'd bring my folder in and we'd take it out and look it on the light backboard. A lot of medical records are becoming digital now, and a lot of the imaging, which is a ton of data, is becoming digital as well. And not only is there a lot of data with healthcare to manage, but there's a lot of regulatory and security implications that you need to be mindful of as well. So that's a trend that's driving a lot of big data. Natural resources. We've seen some interesting use cases of our customers around oil, gas, and mineral exploration. So think about seismic data and soil densities and all of the inputs you would want to understand where there may be gold, emerald, oil, natural gas deposits. They collect all of this information and they need to do a lot of analysis on it. And it's really only one time, which makes it challenging. So they collect the data, analyze it, find out where to drill, and the challenges that come with that particular business model is it's a ton of demand, and then it's no demand. So how do you build infrastructure to support that type of use case? And then retail. This one I find very interesting, like I said, being in marketing. There is so much information that comes from so many different sources as to what I've been looking at. What might I want to buy? Maybe my wife and I bought a baby crib, and now everyone knows that we have a baby. So what are all of the different things you can try and sell me? It's important to know when is the right time to market to customers as well. If I've bought a crib, it's definitely the right time to try and sell me baby clothes and all the other things. So it's the right product, the right time. You can get these insights, but it's hard. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of different resources, and it all has to be associated to me as a potential consumer, and that's challenging. So this is more on the consumer side and Web 2.0. I had to write a few of these stats down because I knew I wouldn't be able to read them from here. But the amount of data that consumers are generating is absolutely amazing. Couple stats here. This is what happens in 1 minute on the internet. 38,000 photos are uploaded every single minute on the internet. Now, photos, maybe 1-2 meg in size, so they're not driving the majority of the internet traffic, but that's still a lot of new information to store and manage. There's 7 million Facebook posts every single minute. That's a lot of information and a lot of people with arguably too much free time. There's 100 hours of video uploaded. That's 100 new hours of new content of people using their phones or GoPro cameras. 100 hours every single minute of new content. And that's what's getting uploaded. The amount of people watching that information is even more amazing to me. It's 130,000 hours of video is viewed every single minute on the internet. It's an unbelievable amount of data. And when you look at YouTube and Netflix, for example, they make up more than half of the internet traffic, just those two companies. That shows how powerful creating video, uploading video, and the consumption that happens through those two companies really is. So the last stat I wanted to touch on this slide is connected devices. So a lot of people have been talking about Internet of Things, so I won't belabor that point too much, but by 2017, there's expected to be 3 times more devices connected to the internet than there are humans. And that's just going to continue to grow. People will come up with new applications, new devices, and that will expand. Internet of Things, I was going to spend a little bit of time defining it, but if you've sat through any of the previous presentations, I'm sure everyone is quite familiar with the Internet things. It's everything from connected refrigerators to connected vehicles, to your home thermostat, to a Fitbit medical device or a fitness device. It's a wealth of devices. I'm going to touch through a few of the examples I think are interesting. And the point I would make before I get too far into this is it's very early on. A lot of people are talking about it. It's a buzzword, but I've seen very few practical implementations of people using Internet of Things devices in a very effective manner. But the opportunities are definitely there. So think about maintenance for a vehicle. I remember every 3,000 miles or 6,000 kilometers, had to take the car in, had to get the oil changed, had to change the oil filter. Didn't matter if I drove on dirt, dusty roads and drove really fast, or if I was a very patient, slow driver on the highway. It didn't matter. There was no information that came from the vehicle. I had to change the oil, had to change the oil filter. The connected vehicle, all of the sensors in the vehicle, that information can now be pulled out and make a far better user experience. So the car or my service tells me when I need to go change the oil. It tells me when maybe there's a vibration in the engine and I should go have the car looked at before something bad happens. It turns what was always a scheduled on every single 3,000 mile event to something that is on demand and is far better experience for me as a user. Insurance is another interesting one, and this gets into some things around privacy of information, security of information. But I'm a pretty mellow driver. I don't drive too fast. I'm relatively cautious in my driving. I was in our offices in Buenos Aires before I came up here, and I'm not sure I would survive driving in Buenos Aires for many years. I'm not sure the lanes actually mean anything. It was intimidating. But insurance is a business model where you aggregate groups of people. So young males were more likely to get in accidents. Maybe middle-aged women drive more cautiously on average, and they're less likely to get in accidents. So your insurance premiums are based on these big buckets of people. What the connected vehicle could enable is I may be willing to share how fast I drive. I may be willing to share how quickly I brake. And if I'm a safe driver, I might get very big discounts on my insurance. So I'm not sure I want to share all that information, but it does create new pricing models and business opportunities. The connected human is another interesting one. And I think the piece I focus around here where I think there's opportunity for the connected human is a bit around quality of life. So all of the fitness devices that people wear, when people see that they're making progress, when people see their exercise, their heart rate, and that they're making progress towards a goal, I think generally speaking, yes, it's a new business opportunity, but I think it's going to create a better quality of life for people, which is very valuable. And the actual devices that monitor your health, I think this is another really interesting opportunity. Again, I'm sure there's a very good business model behind it, but think about diabetics and being able to measure blood sugar levels, or being able to collect information over a period of time versus just going to the doctor once and having them ask you a couple questions and hoping that they diagnose you effectively. The ability to monitor your general health over a period of time is going to enable the doctors to more effectively diagnose you. And I think equally interesting, if not more important, is there's a lot of people that aren't close to some of the best doctors in the world. By being able to collect this information, it's going to enable people that have been underserved from medicine to be served more effectively over time. The connected machine, a lot of this is about efficiency, but I think there's some interesting safety examples as well. So the utilities management one is a very simple example around efficiency. There was a meter reader that would go read how much electricity you consumed or how much natural gas you consumed. And they went house to house, logged this in a little machine, took it all back. The ability to collect this data remotely, it's more accurate, number one. Number two, it's incredibly efficient for those energy companies. It allows them to not have people drive everywhere. It also allows them to be a bit more proactive. So think if there's a gas leak or if a water line breaks, they'll have visibility into the issue very quickly and they'll be able to send out people to fix it. Another example is farming. So the farms have continued to consolidate, and they become bigger and bigger farms. And the tractors now have GPS devices in them. They're connected to the internet, and they're very specifically routed on the back and the forth as they apply fertilizer, because they found out there's a ton of money that can be saved by ensuring that there's just a slight overlap of those tractor routes. And then a third, actually, I read about a Chilean mining company that I found interesting. It's not only about operational efficiency, it's also about safety. I mean, mining is a relatively dangerous industry, and they've internet connected their devices, and they can do a lot of manage where people don't actually have to be in the mines anymore. So operational benefits, but far better safety for the companies and the employees of that company. So that's an overview of a bunch of different Internet of Thing trends, as well as some of the verticals in enterprise that we see driving big data. If I step back from all of this and I say, what do I think are the common themes across all of this for opportunities? Speed of change is one. So I manage a set of global products, and even 5-6 years ago, I would see my revenue declining or sales declining, and it would be really hard to figure out what was going on with the business. Today, we collect and associate customer information, sales information, installation information, unfortunately, disconnect information, all of this information, as well as what customer set, what region are these customers in. It's an amazing amount of data. It's hard to tie together. But if you're able to do that, I can quickly say, my sales in Colombia are working exactly like they should. It's my sales in Brazil have declined for this particular product. So it enables me to quickly react. That's the speed of change. I can fix the issue, identify the issue far more quickly. Customer insight. Historically, advertising had been a lot of general awareness campaigns. Who is Level 3, or who is your company? And you'd hope that some of the people that saw that would be interested in buying your products. Not the most effective way to spend marketing dollars. What you're seeing with big data is the ability to find the right customers, find the customers that are at the right point in the buying cycle, so that you can more effectively target and add promotions and product offers to those customers to increase sales. It just turns into a far more effective way to spend marketing dollars. And then operational efficiency. We touched on a couple of these already, but an example that's near and dear to me is Level 3 operates the biggest global internet network. And we have 45 billion net flow sessions every single day. And a net flow session is just me as a user looking at content on Google. That connection is a net flow session. That is an immense amount of data to have to manage, but what we can derive or what we can understand from that information is if there are a bunch of net flow sessions pointed at one IP address, it's probably a DDoS attack, and we can take measures to mitigate that DDoS attack. It gives us an incredible amount of information of bad things happening on the internet that we can manage and mitigate proactively. So again, a lot of data to collect and store, but the opportunity it gives for us to run a more efficient network, it's very powerful. So key challenges. Privacy is the first one that comes to mind. If I'm wearing a Fitbit device, you know exactly what I've done, you know where I am, and you know a lot of my other health information. If it's a connected vehicle, again, you know where I am, you know how I drive, you know a lot of things about me that would be very personal. So as enterprises and businesses try to make use of all of this data, it's very important to keep in mind that you need to think through processes, administrative rights, who has the ability to access this information from a policy and process perspective. It's not all technology. A lot of it is process and policy. Security. everyone has talked about this today. This is the one I hear most from our customers about what scares them. It's you can manage the privacy piece. That is within your control of your own employees and how you use that data. You cannot manage, without a very strong security policy, others attacking and doing bad things to get access to that information. And you're not going to have the trust of your customers if you don't have a strong security policy in place. And that's another one. It's not all technology. It's process. It's something that you need to continuously look at. You can't assume that a good security policy today is a good security policy tomorrow, because there's new types of threats and new types of attacks. Infrastructure. We touched on this a bit earlier when I talked about the IT operations groups. But again, it's an unpredictable amount of storage and data that you're going to have to manage. It's unpredictable when your employees are going to want to analyze that data. And sometimes it may be one-time usage. How do you come up with an infrastructure plan that enables you to support those spikes, but doesn't require you to invest all of that money and have that capacity to sit there idly when you're not using it? So the infrastructure is a key piece. Regulatory. This is going to inform your infrastructure plans to some extent. So Germany, for example, has privacy laws where German citizen data has to stay in Germany. If you wanted to use AWS or Azure in London or Frankfurt, you can't. You have to follow the regulatory policy. So you may have to deploy your own infrastructure in Germany to meet those laws. So as you think through big data and your operations, it's very important that you understand the regulatory environment in each of those companies before you start planning for your infrastructure and security plans, because it will drive what you can and cannot do. Then liability and responsibility. Like I said, there's the privacy piece, which is I don't want you to know where I am, but what if someone finds that information and does something bad to me? The company who let that information get out, a lot of financial risk, a lot of responsibility there. And maybe even more importantly, it's your brand. Your brand is probably your most important asset with your customers. You can't have these types of things happening and still have people trust you as a company. So again, there's a lot around the security and protection of this information. So implications, what can you do about this? There's more options out there, but I'm going to go through what we at Level 3 have seen a lot of our customers do as they've tried to implement and manage big data. Collection. The Internet of Things is inherently everywhere. You need a partner or a provider that is global in nature, and the bandwidth demands are a bit unpredictable. So you need a network provider that can not just sell you fixed capacity and hope that works for the long term. You need a network provider that thinks through SDN technologies or other usage-based models that allow you as a consumer to bring in the data when you need it, where you need it, without paying for everything up front. Now, security. There are definitely more secure or more people at Level 3 that know more about security than I do, but I do see a lot of this having the cloud networking services, and what I would say is it starts with the Internet of Thing device. There's information on this refrigerator or vehicle, and that's where it starts. And then you have the permissions and the policies. Who's allowed to take and access information from that device? Then you have the transport of the information. So you need to get the information off of that device back to wherever you're going to store it. And a lot of people encrypt the data. That's one way to make sure that people can't get into that transfer of data and steal the information because it's encrypted. And once you've moved all of that data, you have to store the data. So again, whether it be public cloud or private cloud, you need to think through encryption models and ways to make sure that if someone steals a storage drive out of that platform, they can't make any sense of the data on there. Now, storage is an interesting one. I've touched on how spiky the demand can be and what's the right model. It's a natural fit for cloud. There may be a steady state of business that you want to maintain and a certain type of information that you want to maintain in your own data centers. But for all of the massive amounts of data coming in, you want a model that is pay as you use it. And that's where cloud storage is very beneficial. It's also probably more economical in addition to being pay as you use, because the scale, just the size and the amount of storage devices that an Amazon, a Google, a Microsoft, these big public cloud providers can build, it's absolutely amazing. And there are not many enterprises that could have enough scale to compete with the pricing that these providers can provide. And it also ties very closely to the next implication. All of this data doesn't mean a thing unless you can analyze it and get to those insights that you're looking for. And that means a lot of compute. And again, it's variable. You don't know who is going to want to analyze the data. You don't know when. And if you think back to that mining example, they collect all of this data, seismic data, soil density data. They do one really big analysis that takes a ton of compute, and they do it one time, and then they go drill and they explore and they find the minerals. It doesn't make sense for companies to buy all of the servers, buy all of the storage to do that one-time data analysis. So again, cloud computing makes a lot of sense for actually driving insights and getting the insights you want out of the data. Presentation. I'm actually probably going to skip to the next slide and just kind of give a real-life example of one of the most common architectures we've seen for all of this, bringing in a big data, storing a big data, analyzing a big data, and then presenting it to your customers in a useful, secure way. So here's the image. And I'll spend a few minutes on this one. On the left, you've got all the Internet of Things devices. You have all of the users that are accessing whatever application you're trying to sell, and maybe I'll pick retail as an example. So you're collecting all this information around what products people have searched for. You're looking at other information as to what have they bought in the past. With that information, you need to bring all of it in, store it in a public cloud. You need to do all of the analysis to figure out what type of product or promotion you're going to run. And all of that fits pretty cleanly and nicely in the public cloud. But now you need to market. You need to run a promotion. You need to target that customer that says, I think he's in the right place to buy this product. I think this is the right price point. I think I can win this business. So you push out that promotion to the customer, and then they're going to come to your website. So this is where we start to see hybrid cloud. And when we talk convergence, I think hybrid in that sense. A lot of people host their web applications on the public cloud, and there's a lot of benefits for it. You can scale quickly. So if it's a holiday season, you can quickly add capacity and support all of the users that are shopping. If you want to expand to a new part of the world, you can quickly add that web application in different regions. And it's also very close to the end users, so the performance of that website also looks very good. So a lot of the web hosting is done with public cloud providers. The actual application that sits underneath it that says, I'm going to enable you to click on this product and buy this product, most companies I've seen are hosting that in the public cloud as well, because again, holiday seasons, you need to ramp up, you need to ramp down. It makes a very scalable way to manage that application. Where hybrid comes into all of this is back to that security and privacy and regulatory piece. So a lot of people are taking the really sensitive data and they're storing it in a private cloud, either a third-party private cloud or your own data center, your own infrastructure. And The retail example there would be, I go in, I shop, I click to buy something. All of that lives in the public cloud. But when I access that customer's credit card information that they've saved, that goes over a private network connection to the private cloud. And again, it could be regulatory or just the comfort level of the business as to where that sensitive data is stored. Then you see the guy with the hat on top, the bad guy that's trying to get in. Some security services you need to think through. We talked about DDoS attacks. So if you're a retail chain, you can't have your website go down during the busiest season. And that's typically where we see a lot of DDoS attacks. It's people just sending tons of information, tons of requests to a specific web address until it crashes and no one else can shop and buy your products anymore. So there are DDoS networking solutions that you should ask your providers about to make sure that they meet your needs. There is the encryption we talked about earlier. Data comes in, you encrypt it, you store it in an encrypted fashion in your public cloud, and that way no one can access the sensitive information. And then there's also another type of firewall, so web application firewalls. You'll see those from a variety of public cloud providers, but if you're hosting your website on a public cloud provider, look into web application firewalls because they prevent some of the other attacks other than DDoS from taking your website down or stealing sensitive customer information. So what are the key takeaways? The networking side, it's information, it's everywhere, and you don't know how much of it is going to be coming in to your network and when. So you need a global company that enables you to scale up and scale down the capacity you need, and you need reliability because when your users want to look at and analyze the data, you need all of that visible and accessible to your employees. The commitment to security. Again, the key points I'll hit here is find someone that really understands security because this is the scariest part, I think, of big data. And the implications are so much more than just, I keep giving the encryption example, but it's so much more than just encrypting the data. It's the people, it's the process, it's the policies, who has access to which information. It's protecting that information. And it's doing this on a regular basis. 6 months down the road, you need to revisit all of your security policies. So you're going to want to find, if you don't have this expertise in-house, which most companies do not, find a provider that can really give you that end-to-end security plan. And then this last one. This one's exciting to me because it really centers around my products, and it's the advent of SDN. So we have dynamic cloud server computing. So if you want to analyze data, you can analyze this much, or you can analyze this much, and you pay for what you analyze, the servers you use. We have storage. I can store this much data, I can store this much data, and I pay for what I use. Networks don't work that way today, and we've been investing a lot in SDN technology. And just to give a flavor of where we are today and where I think the industry is going, today we have the ability to do dynamic capacity. So you can log into your portal, and you can increase the capacity 2x, you can increase the capacity 3x, and you can also make it event-driven. If you start to send more data, the network automatically adds more capacity. And when you stop sending data, the network knows that. It has a utilization threshold, and it will take that capacity back down. So it's getting closer to that cloud consumption model. Now, it's not all the way there by any means yet, but that's a step in the right direction. A technology we're betaing right now, dynamic connections. I'm sure it's frustrating for people when they want to do something new in the cloud and they call their network service provider and we say 30 days from now we can get you that capacity and you can do what you want to do in the cloud. It's a very long time. We've been working on leveraging SDN to connect to public cloud providers real time. So we can do to AWS today a click connection and you can put capacity straight to AWS with a click of a button. And we have to work through other cloud service providers, make it more global in nature. But think that is where network providers need to go to support your needs. So even if people don't have that today, it's a question you should be asking your service providers. What's your roadmap? How are you going to enable me to consume my big data when I want at a fair price, so I'm only paying for what I use? So with that, I'd say thank you to you all, and I believe open it up to any questions if there are any.